Because I think a lot of women, this would be because so many times women get caught up in that and they let that be their identity rather than just going there and having real conversations with their husbands.
Right. Yeah, my husband and I had conversations early on, and I was really a little bit, concerned about what he might think. He'd been in the church since he was a teenager. He was a virgin. He was like planted in the church. He'd been the youth pastor at our church, and so I thought that this could be a monkey wrench. But so what I did is very early on, I think it was on our third date, I said, listen, I need to let you know where I've come from. I said, I have a background of abuse. I used to be a stripper. I'm redeemed. I'm a new creation. And I said, so if you want to date me, I need you to be okay with that.
Baby handoff.
Baby handoff. I said, if you want to date me, I need you to be okay with that. And not only do you need to be okay with it, but I'm not going to be quiet about it either. So you need to be comfortable with me talking about it. And I was almost saying it in a very firm way, like pushing the limits. Let's get it out now.
Exactly.
Like if we're gonna have an issue, let's talk about it now. Or thank you very much for your 3 dates. And so he was like, oh, that's cool. And I'm like, I just kept waiting for the other shoe to drop. You know what I mean? But it never did. And
God had already prepared his heart.
God had prepared his heart, and one of his strongest characteristics is just his grace. For people, he's a very gracious man. That's one of his real strengths. And then also finding out that his mother, basically we have very similar backgrounds and stories and hearts, and so he had seen God's redemptive hand in her life, and so it wasn't hard for him to accept that and see that and even celebrate that in my life. So it's been really cool.
Wow. Now, does he ask you a lot of questions about your past? Does he want information?
Sometimes he does, and so we keep an open dialogue, but if there's ever a point where I don't think the details are going to be helpful, then we don't talk about it. You know what I mean? It's like there's a point where it can be unhealthy. Like I've heard of women in relationships where the guys are like, well, I don't understand. Why was it this? And then what did you do next? That's not a healthy conversation. A healthy conversation is like, well, help me understand, like, what was going on in your heart that you wanted to be with someone who treated you that way. Like, that's an understandable question for a person to have that's never experienced that and who's never been a woman, And so those are healthy dialogues, but having, and then just having the wisdom to know, like, I don't think answering that question would be helpful for you or for me. There's some details that are just like, they belong in the past, and I don't need to conjure up ideas or images in his head.
Okay, how did you get so smart with all this?
I came from all this abuse, and I had this because we just did a conference on stolen identity. That was how women adopt these, identities that people put on them, or the roles they have that becomes them. And you said in your thing today that you and your husband both brought some unhealthiness, and that you're changing that in this generation. And I think that's so powerful, because I think women just think, well, this is who I am, and it's just going to continue. But you can stop and go, it stops in this generation. It's no more the sins of the father that keeps getting passed down. But this generation is stopping. So from this point on, this little girl will not be raised with that. And I think that's so powerful, and it's so true, because it can't stop. And we need to go, I'm stopping it right now.
Right, yeah. You can't change your past, you can't change everything that's happened to you, but you can make a new choice today.
Exactly.
And to let your past and let your pain inform your decisions for the future, and realize I don't want to make the mistakes that my forefathers made, and I don't even want to make mistakes that I've made already, and I want to do something new, a new legacy. My husband and I even changed our name because he didn't know his father, and he had the name of a man who wasn't his father, who was a very abusive man, and we just wanted a new legacy. And so even the name Dust came from the Bible, the scripture, God made man from dust, he breathed the breath of life into him, and he became alive and living. And so, I mean, that's our whole heart, is we want it to end with us.
Well, it's interesting, because in the Old Testament, God always gave him a new name.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So it is something really cool. You have a new name and new identity kind of going forward. This is who we're going to be. It's not, the past dysfunction and healthiness that have to define you anymore.
Exactly.
And I mean, just listening to you, how you're articulate and you're healthy, you're such a healthy person, which a lot of people think if I have this much unhealthiness and abuse and woundedness, I can never be totally healthy. And I just think that's so encouraging to women to go, there's hope.
There's hope. There's light. Not only that, but like
there's
God will
beyond.
use, if you're willing to let him, God will use all of the things that you think are the very things that would hinder you from God's purposes for you and hinder you from doing something significant with your life, are are the very things that God will use to infuse your purpose and turn them all around and use them for good. But it's a process of surrendering and being willing to let it be used.